Hello everyone and Happy New Year here from the United States Embassy in Santiago. Welcome to the 45th episode of American Spaces on Air podcast and the very first episode of 2025. This podcast is an initiative brought to you by Instituto Chile Norteamericano en Santiago and American Academy of Science and Technology of Universidad de Talca, in collaboration with the American Spaces Network in Chile and the support of the United States Embassy in Santiago. My name is Juan Miguel Romero, and with my colleague Nicole Belay, we will be your hosts today.
Today, we have the honor and pleasure to interview a very special guest. We are very emotional because this guest will be soon moving back to the United States, but she was generous enough to grant us the privilege of her company today. U.S. Ambassador to Chile, Bernadette Meehan. This is the first time that we have an ambassador in our podcast. Bernadette Meehan was confirmed as the U.S. Ambassador to Chile in July 2022. Prior to her appointment, she served as Executive Vice President for Global Programs at the Obama Foundation, overseeing leadership development programs for emerging leaders and initiatives to empower adolescent girls worldwide.
That's right. Meehan has had a notable career in the U.S. Foreign Service, serving in high-profile roles such as Special Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs and spokesperson for the National Security Council. Her overseas postings included assignments in Dubai, Baghdad, and Bogotá. She also contributed to diplomacy through advisory roles at Georgetown University and the NGO Hostage US, supporting families of Americans impacted by kidnappings or detentions abroad. Before joining the State Department, she worked as a vice president at important finance companies in Wall Street. She has resided in Chile for the last 2.5 years with her husband and her daughter. Madam Ambassador, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to finally have a chance to sit down and speak with the American Spaces audiences.
Ambassador, welcome. Thank you for your time. You have been here in Chile for 2.5 years. What would you say were your biggest achievements here in Chile?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm incredibly proud of our network of 14 American Spaces and Corners a lo largo del país, right? All the way from Arica down to Punta Arenas.
That's right.
I couldn't be happier to be sharing this time with you and your audience. The truth is, my time here has passed so quickly. You noted I've been here for just under 2.5 years. We hoped we were going to have 4 years, but this is life in a democracy, and now I'm preparing for the transition. And this transition time has given me a lot of time to reflect on my accomplishments. And I think about them really in 3 broad buckets. The first bucket are things that you can check off a list. So, for example, we signed the United States and Chile a bilateral tax treaty, which will promote investment between the two countries. This is something that was pending for 10 years in the United States Senate. We finally, after almost 25 years, reached technical and scientific agreements to allow Chilean table grapes to travel to the United States without fumigation, which will bring increased health to the people of the United States and the people who love Chilean grapes, and increase profits to the farmers and companies here in Chile. We have signed agreements on everything from space, commerce, scientific and technical cooperation. We have the Google Humboldt cable, which will be the first subsea cable between all of Latin America and the Asia Pacific. So there are so many things that I'm incredibly proud of. The second bucket, I would say, is less the agreements and the things you check off the list, and more thinking about the U.S.-Chile relationship in the historical context. In 2023, we celebrated 200 years of bilateral relations, a lot to celebrate, but we also commemorated the 50th anniversary of Chile's military coup. And so that year provided me the opportunity to think, to listen, a very important job for an ambassador, and to educate myself. And I'm incredibly proud that the United States government declassified 2 key presidential daily briefs from that period of time. We provided a grant so that the 23,000 documents that the United States has already declassified about our policy in Chile during that time will now be translated into Spanish and freely available. Wow. So Chileans can learn about their own history in their own language. And I'm particularly proud of the naming of my residence, the official U.S. ambassador's residence, as the Barnes House. This was in honor of Ambassador Harry Barnes, one of my predecessors, and the role that he took in supporting the Chilean people who returned this country peacefully to democracy and stood up for human rights. And we did that last year on the 35th anniversary of the No Plebiscito. So that's the second big bucket. And my hope with that second bucket is that we've ushered in a new era of the U.S.-Chile relationship where we're always cognizant, as your national stadium says, that a people without memory is a people without a future. But we also know that in 2024, the relationship is the strongest it has ever been. And the last bucket, the third bucket, I would say, has been connecting with the people of Chile. I have often felt that you can't be really effective at your job and you can't understand a country if you're just sitting in La Moneda or talking with ministers or business elites in the capital. You need to go out into the countrysides, into the small towns. And I am really proud that part of my legacy is that I have been to every region of Chile. I have stayed at least 1 month, one night every month outside of Santiago. I've been everywhere from Maria Elena to Coronel to Cabo de Hornos, to Puerto Williams. Wow. I've been Arica, all the way down to Cape Horn, to Antarctica, and out to Rapa Nui. So that is part of what I hope my legacy is connecting with everyday Chileans who have done so much to help me understand this country and fortify our relationship.
And that's a lot. And
it's a lot in 2 years.
Yes. And those achievements will benefit both countries, actually. As an ambassador, you've shown concern not only for that strong bilateral cooperation and relationship, but also showed concern for each individual that ultimately creates this relationship, right?
Yes, and as you said, you've been here for 2 years and a half. It feels like not a lot, but also you've done a lot. Like, for example, since your arrival here, you have sped up the waiting times for visas. We even saw you do visa interviews to help consular officers,
Indeed.
and you managed to reduce the waiting times. However, there is one topic that keeps resurging in the media. What are your thoughts on the visa waiver program?
Well, I'm grateful for the question. I will say I'm expecting it. When I arrived in Chile, everyone asked about the visa waiver program, and when I'm leaving, everybody's asking. But let me start by addressing, I think, a really important you made about the consular progress that we've made, because I'm really proud of this. When I arrived to Santiago in September of 2022, the U.S. Embassy in Santiago had the longest wait time in the entire world of any U.S. embassy in the world for a non-immigrant visa appointment. We now have no wait time. So this is a testament to the incredible work that the Consular Affairs section has done to speed up and prioritize student appointments, business travel, emergency and medical travel. We've eliminated backlogs for what we call e-investor visas for people who are looking to invest money in the United States. So that is a huge accomplishment on its own. With regards to the visa waiver program, I have always tried during my time here to be really direct and honest about the status of the program and Chile's participation. When I arrived in Chile, I think it's no secret that the United States was on the verge of removing Chile from the program. That was a decision that was almost final. But together, working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Registro Civil, Minister Toan, the Ministry of the Interior, with the PDI, with the Carabineros, with the airport authorities, we have made tremendous progress. We have a joint work plan. Chile has complied with that work plan. Now, the issue is Chile has been in the visa waiver program for 10 years.
Yeah. Yes.
And when you use 2 years to try and catch up for some of the deficiencies and slowness over 10 years, you only have so much time before time runs out. So I am grateful for everything that not only the Boric administration, but members of Chile's Senate and Congress have done to ensure that Chile meets its requirements. But to be quite frank, because of the increase in crime in the United States by what we call South American theft gangs, which are made up almost entirely of Chilean nationals, there is a lot of pressure in the United States about whether Chile should remain in the program. So I can't speak for the new administration coming into the United States. All I can say is that it is my hope, and I am confident that Chile will continue to do everything it can to meet its requirements, but it will be a challenge. And Chile will need to keep taking steps at a very rapid pace to continue membership in the program.
I am assuming you're alluding to security concerns, organized and transnational crime, like you mentioned. and they need to protect the United States security as your mission goals say, at home and abroad. Are there any major security milestones you have or you're proud to have achieved during your time as an ambassador?
That's another great question. Let me say one more thing as it relates to this and the visa waiver program. The visa waiver program, oftentimes when we talk about it in the news, we talk about how it facilitates travel for tourism and business, which is certainly a benefit of the program. But the underlying premise of the program is a security agreement. And it's important also to emphasize that this agreement doesn't just benefit the American people, right, and the security of the United States. This exchange of information is something that helps keep Chile safer and stronger from transnational threats as well. So it really is a mutually beneficial program, especially as Chile is continuing to confront a rising wave of insecurity. So that's my hope in sort of that the program will continue apace. When it comes to security accomplishments, I would say a couple of things. Chile is now a participant in a Bogotá, Colombia-based joint task force on organized crime. This is really important because, as we know, a lot of the drug trafficking and tren de Aragua and other crimes that we see, they don't respect borders. These are not issues that Chile is suffering from alone. It's a regional issue, and it has to be tackled with a regional approach. So we have worked really hard to integrate Chile into more of these regional security cooperation agreements. We have hosted our U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives to do training for carabineros and for the PDI across Chile on a program called eTrace. eTrace is a software program that allows you to enter in specific information about a weapon or a firearm used in a crime, and you can trace how it entered Chile.
Wow.
Did it come in legally? Was it imported through gangs? Is it attached to Tren de Aragua? Is it attached to a cartel? So we've tried to do what we can to help Chile gain access to tools that will help Chile become more effective in combating crime. And then the third thing that I would mention is we just recently finished hosting in the United States, in Puerto Rico, in Houston, and Washington, D.C., an interagency group of Chilean officials from the Ministry of Interior, led by Subsecretario Cordero, the Carabineros, the PDI, Customs, Fiscalía, Directomar, Gendarmería, and WAF, to understand how we secure our borders in the United States and try and combat transnational crime and drug trafficking. Now, why is it important to mention all of those agencies? Because the U.S. government assesses that Chile has some of the strongest security services in the entire hemisphere. But Chile historically has not done as good a job as other countries in integrating them. And what we found in the United States after the September 11th attacks in 2001 is that no matter how good your security services are, if they don't share data among each other and work together, the data is not very useful. Wow. And so we've been really proud of our work. And I would say that, all of these institutions have done an exceptional job of recognizing where some of the breaches are and working together to help fortify Chile as it faces some of these increased threats.
I believe you share best practices, and not only with law enforcement agencies. Chile and the United States also have very active military cooperation.
Indeed.
You were often seen actively supporting this cooperation, like when you took a helicopter to arrive on board of the aircraft carrier USS George Washington.
That's right.
So what are some of the major military cooperation highlights you would like to share?
Oh, well, you're right. This was one of the most fun aspects of my job. Helicopter rides to land on Airport Aviones. I did a joint skydive with Chilean Special Forces out in Pudahuel. Yes. I would say, in my assessment, that the U.S.-Chile military relationship is the strongest military relationship that the United States has in the Western Hemisphere, in Latin America. And that's a very bold statement to make. And other U.S. ambassadors may disagree with me, of course. But the interoperability that Chile has with U.S. forces and with NATO forces overall is something that keeps this hemisphere more secure. We cooperate in joint operations like RIMPAC, Unitas, you're right. For the first time since 2015, we had a U.S. aircraft carrier come. I was very proud that we were able to welcome Minister of Defense Fernandez and several of your senior military officials to board her as she passed through the Strait of Magellan in Punta Arenas, and we did air exercises off the coast of Valparaiso and in the north. But even more importantly than the large multinational exercises are the everyday training exercises that we do together. We do high altitude training here, cold weather training here. We have a number of Chileans who have studied at U.S. military colleges in the United States who come up for joint training in the United States. And these are the ties that last for generations. And I am confident that military cooperation will continue even well after my departure.
That's impressive. And one of the important aspects of military cooperation is cybersecurity. At American Space Moneda, where I work, we've received visits such as Ambassador at Large for Cyberspace and Digital Policy Nathaniel Fick, while he was doing an interview for a Chilean newspaper. He mentioned that technologies evolve extremely fast, as we all are aware. The best example would be the rise of artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies, for instance, advances in space technology and bringing people back to the moon.
Absolutely.
What scientific collaboration milestones would you highlight from your time in office?
Oh, this is where I get really excited because, in my opinion, Chile is at the vanguard of emerging technology and interesting, exciting capabilities in technology and space and new frontiers. And the thing that's really cool about the work that the United States and Chile do together in this area is it won't just benefit Chile and the United States. These have applications that can change the course of humanity. And think about the gravity and the awesomeness of that statement, but it's not an exaggeration. When we're talking about space exploration, Antarctic exploration, these are things that have consequences we cannot even begin to imagine. And we cooperate in all of these areas. The U.S. has between $1 and $2 billion in investment in space infrastructure in Chile alone. Wow. We contribute $500 million a year to joint Antarctic research and cooperation. We were very proud to welcome Chile this year. Minister Echeverri signed on to the Artemis Accords, which is an international agreement that says we believe in the peaceful and safe exploration of space. Chile is the lead in President Biden's signature initiative for Latin America, the Americas Partnership for Economic Prosperity, and Chile leads the space work stream and the green hydrogen work stream. So all of these different things that we are doing together, I cannot wait to watch in my lifetime and hopefully in my daughter's lifetime what comes from these great collaborations.
Yeah, seeing those results. And well, all of this is very inspiring. I wish we could have more time to discuss all of these issues.
Fast.
Yes, and also Chile has benefited a lot from your work here as an ambassador, and that's part of the legacy you leave behind.
Thank
here.
you.
Now we could end the interview here,
okay.
But if you have a bit more time, we would like to have a few more minutes to talk about topics that our audience might be curious to know about.
Okay. So is this going to be like a fun lightning round?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Something.
Okay.
Something like that.
I'm ready for it.
Let's go.
Okay, but first of all, for our public, an ambassador is usually this very distant political figure they do not often see nor interact with. But this perception has changed a lot with you during this time in office. So overall, how would you define as an ambassador's role, but in your own words, in simple words?
That's a great question. Well, in official terms, I am first and foremost the President of the United States' direct and personal representative to the government of Chile. So my role is to advocate for policies that benefit the United States and Chile. And I do that in my official capacity with all manner of individuals in Chile. The second aspect of it is I am the chief of mission. I run this embassy. So in addition to being a diplomat, I also manage people day to day. And just like anybody in any company, no matter how big or small, that has lots of opportunities, but lots of challenges, right? To make sure that people here are productive and have high morale and enjoy their jobs and can work in an efficient manner. And then the third thing that I would say is I see part of my job as engaging with the people of Chile Chile. And that's not necessarily the formal official part, as you noted, but to me, it is perhaps the most important part, because to increase understanding between our countries, to increase cooperation on all of the things that we've been talking about, commerce, scientific exchanges, everything else, you need to do that not just at official levels. And one of the coolest things that I have realized is no matter what topic you could think about, you could tell me any topic in the world, no matter how niche or obscure, there is someone in the United States working with someone in Chile on that issue. And a lot of times, it's not government to government. It's academics, it's students, it's civil society, it's nonprofits, it's private sector.
People to people.
People to people exchanges. And so being involved in that and breaking out of the traditional mold has been really exciting for me. The last thing I will say is, in my capacity as ambassador, I'm also responsible for the safety and security of American citizens in Chile. And sometimes Chileans aren't necessarily aware of that because it doesn't focus on them. But we have about 66,000 Americans that live here in Chile full time, and another 300,000 that visit every year your beautiful national parks and cities and towns. And my primary responsibility is to ensure that they are safe and secure, which is, as you can imagine, something that weighs on me quite heavily because it's quite an awesome responsibility.
It is, indeed.
I have to say that, and I dare to say that you're loved by many Chileans, and very well known here, and people literally stop to get photos with you on the street.
I like it when people come say hello. It's a lot of fun.
I suppose that happens a lot. How do you think the social media presence, because that's being a big part of it, actually, the fact that we're in this podcast together, is a way also for people to know and be aware of everything that you are doing and the collaboration that is happening. So I have to say thank you for that. How do you think this fame or this being well known by people contributed to achieving U.S. policy goals here in Chile?
That's another great question. We're in a new world. When I was in college, I didn't even have an email, let alone Facebook and TikTok and Twitter and Instagram. But I think one of the lessons is when you're connecting with people and you're trying to emphasize the importance of a relationship, you have to use all of the tools that are available to you. I have relied on my team to make me seem hipper than I think that I am. But it has been an incredible way for me to connect directly with people. Traditional media plays a very important and valuable role in any democracy, and I enjoy my engagements there. But when I'm engaging in social media or in platforms like this, I love that I can say, I'm going to Rancagua, where do I get the best empanadas? And I'll get 10,000 comments saying, here's where you should go, right? And that is a new tool that wasn't available to diplomats or politicians in the past. And so the question is, how do we leverage that to make ourselves more accessible? And that I have had a lot of fun doing. It's been a real joy in this job.
Yes. And people really can feel that,
and I get great food recommendations, cultural recommendations. It's been a lot of fun.
They also feel like engaged.
Exactly. They feel like they have a connection, which is what I was hoping to achieve.
Well, Ambassador, and finally, we cannot let you leave without asking one thing about the American spaces.
Yes.
So you have visited most of them from Arica to Punta Arenas, actually. So what's the importance of these spaces and how do they help you advance the mission goals?
These spaces are so fundamental to the work that we do. But here's the great thing about the American spaces for everyone in your audience who hasn't visited. They're a lot of fun.
Yes.
And they're free. And they offer so many valuable tools to help you learn and improve your lives. And again, just have fun, which we all need a little bit more of. I will say this. As I prepare to move back to the United States with my daughter, who's 6 years old, I've spent a lot of time thinking about how to maintain her Chileno, right? Because we're going back to the United States. And I said, don't I wish that Chile had the equivalent of an American space where she could go and have Spanish conversation, check out Spanish books, use technology. These are the things that the American space does, right? Teaches you about the culture of the United States, talks to you about educational opportunities. Are you interested in being an exchange student? Are you interested in a Becca? Are you interested in a Fulbright? Are you interested in practicing your English in a safe, fun environment? There are Taylor Swift English clubs. This is the fun stuff.
Jazz concerts, all of these different opportunities. And it's not just for people who attend the universities where the space is located. It's open to the entire public. And so I think these are one of the most incredible opportunities and tools that the U.S. government has here in Chile. And if any of you are listening and you have not visited an American space, you should run down immediately and see what they have to offer, because they are truly, they will change your life. I say that sincerely.
Wow. Well, thank you for those words. You couldn't have said it better what we do. And I think this is the best marketing we will be having for the coming months and years. Thank you.
And I will say, I hope that I am a frequent visitor to Chile in the future. And maybe you'll just find me hanging out at an American space since I won't be at the embassy anymore. And please, if you do see me, come up, ask me for a picture. Let's start our own English language club. And I'll practice my Spanish. And you all can practice your English, right?
Great.
Ambassador, before we leave, let's make a little bit of fun here.
Okay.
Are you ready for a ping pong round?
Okay, a lightning round. I'm ready. Cool.
Please answer the first thing that comes to your head.
Okay.
Let's begin.
Okay.
Favorite Chilean food?
Un pastel de choclo.
Favorite Chilean expression?
Otra cosa con guitarra.
Favorite place in Chile?
It's really hard to choose. I know it's like supposed to be the first thing that comes to mind. My heart is divided here. I always have a special place in my heart for Punta Arenas because I was there as a young person. But our family has really come to love Puerto Varas and Los Lagos.
Wow.
We genuinely have had some very special memories there.
Very good.
Good. Favorite festivity?
I mean, aro. 18. How could there be anything better? Because it's a festival that lasts forever.
All September is.
All of September.
It's not the whole week, it's the whole month.
It's the whole month. I love it.
Biggest cultural shock?
Biggest cultural shock. That's an interesting one. The biggest, I don't know if this is a cultural shock, but it was a nuanced learning opportunity. I grew up in New York City, and we don't have earthquakes in New York City. And when I came to Chile, every time there's like a temblor, I'm like, did everybody feel the terremoto? And all the Chileans are like, this American she's crazy. It's like a temblor. We didn't even wake up. So trying to adjust between the difference of what an American thinks of as a terremoto and the Chileans think of as this is just life. We just sort of roll with it. Has definitely been an adjustment for me. Here I know that a terremoto is more something you drink when you're not working and you're having a fiesta. It's not something that Americans think of.
That's a good way to think of it. And finally, what will you miss the most?
I mean, I couldn't even put it into words. I will really miss... I will miss everything about this country. It is one of the most beautiful, most endearing, most generous places I have ever in my life spent time. And I've spent time all around the world. It is a unique and special place. I could not be more excited to see what the future holds for Chile, not only in the context of the U.S.-Chile relationship, but for Chileans.
In general.
It's just a marvelous place. You all are so lucky, the treasure that you have in this country that you call home.
Such
That's
nice
really
words.
inspiring,
Yes.
It makes me emotional.
Yes.
Madam Ambassador, thank you
It's
for
my pleasure.
being here in our podcast. It was an honor to have you with us and
Thank
also
you.
for inviting us to the embassy to record this podcast.
Yes.
We wish you all the best
Thank
on your
you
next
very
journey.
much.
And we hope to see you very soon here in Chile.
Absolutely. And maybe there are some virtual programs that we can do when I'm back
course.
in Washington.
I'm sure there is.
To stay connected. Thank you all so much for
Thank
listening.
you for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.